To hell with Galileo. The real man of the hour is Copernicus. That's our main man right there. Alright? He was a Polish cleric. Actually, he was born in the same area Poland what is today. I'm not too sure if it was considered to be Poland, but basically I'll read this out to you. He's described as the father of modern astronomy, not cosmology, astronomy. He formulated the theory that the sun is the center of the solar system and the planets revolve in circular orbits around it. Copernicus's idea contradicted the traditional belief laid down by Greek philosopher Ptolemy that had dominated astronomy for over 1,300 years. Holy crap. 1,300 years. People believed that the Earth was the center. Ptolemy had established the school of thought holding that the Earth was the center which about the heavens turned. It was a view that had a powerful religious appeal. By challenging it, Copernicus was defying not only his fellow scientists, but the entire religious establishment of his time. So people argue about Galileo challenging either what did he challenge the scientists, or did he challenge the church, or who did he challenge? This it makes clear. Copernicus challenged his fellow scientists who had issues with his ideas and the church. Both of them were on his bad side. Basically, he was brought up by his aristocratic uncle, and the benefits of security and a fine education meant that Copernicus was able to study as much as he wanted. He mastered theology and mathematics and studied medicine for a time. And it says here, he's mostly attracted by the science of astronomy. I would be too, sir. Until the internet came around, and then we could watch cat videos. But anyways, he had not studied astronomy long before he began to doubt Ptolemy's theory of the heavens. Basically, I read the entire thing, and Ptolemy's idea included, what's called the Ptolemaic cycles, or the elliptic, what are they called? Epicycles, yeah, that's it. Where you had an object, if you viewed the star from your position, and you graphed all of them, and you tracked all of them over time, that they appeared to move, and then stop, and then move backwards, and then start moving again. So the idea that all these objects did that, but then Mercury and Venus did not, they did something else entirely different, was very confusing. Copernicus tried to make sense of the Ptolemaic model, but it was too difficult. And then he found out, he said, wait a second, I think I might just have to ignore this model altogether and place the sun at the center of the solar system. And as well, keep in mind, it wasn't the sun at the center of the solar system. At the time, I think it was essentially the entire universe. But, I don't really think it goes over that, but basically that's what it amounted to. And everybody found it disagreeable. He lived from 1473 to 1543. So, yes, a solid 70 years. He wrote in his book called, hopefully I can pronounce this correctly, which I probably will really screw up, but De Revolutionibus Orbium Caelestium, concerning the revolutions of the heavenly spheres, is what it translates to. And in 1543, he sent the book to the publisher. But before he did that, he had to write a flattering dedication to Pope Paul III. And then the publisher wrote another prelude to the book saying, these aren't really the facts, you can just look at this stuff as if it's, whatever. And what that did was have a negative effect on Copernicus's, what you would call reputation. So before he died, his reputation was shot, and then everybody started looking at him as if he was just some crazy person. But unfortunately, what that did for them, little did they know, was that it actually planted the seeds for further investigation into the orbital characteristics of the objects. You know, the work that Johann Kepler did and Christian Huygens, they stemmed directly from Copernicus's work. But as we see here, he wasn't forced to recant. He wasn't, you know, he didn't have a really big struggle with establishment, or I don't really think it even goes over how much arguing he did with fellow astronomers or whatnot. But long story short, all he really needed to do was flip the understanding around into something that could be easily understood, which took something that needed a lot of explanations and flipped the model around to where it required very little explanation. So if you have the sun, if you have the Earth at the center of all these orbits, you have to do a lot of explaining. You have to add this, you have to add this, you have to add this. If you have the sun at the center, all those extra ad hoc explanations collapse, and they become reasonable as, oh, they go in this direction, and all of them behave in a well-defined manner. Now, let's be clear here. I am no Copernicus. I am no Galileo. I'm just me. But what happened to me is that I learned that establishment was trying to explain things in terms of a disk and a central collapsing cloud. But when you try to add a disk and a central collapsing cloud to form the star, you run into a lot of problems. You have to explain the angular momentum loss. You have to explain how Jupiter could collect all this gas and dust so quickly. You have to explain why the Earth has the core, why the other smaller objects have cores and are fully differentiated. You have to explain why, if it formed from a disk, that Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune have their own moons. Where did those come from? Everything's supposed to be orbiting the sun. You have to explain how Neptune and Uranus formed, even though they're so far out that they defy the actual disk model. You know, with all these ad hoc explanations, you have to come to terms with the fact that this isn't all formed from a disk. These objects are mutually exclusive of each other. They're independent structures. So basically, the philosophy change is as such. If you have the sun and you have the objects orbiting it, establishment says, well, all the objects orbiting it are dependent on the sun's behavior. How the sun evolves, or formed, and how the sun evolved. That's what they depend on. But the change in philosophy is the objects that orbit the sun are mutually exclusive of the sun, meaning they were in the galaxy long before the sun even was formed, and they will exit the solar system when the sun dies and continue off on their evolution orbiting another star altogether. Meaning we live in an adopted family, not a family formed as a coherent disk. So that's the main difference in philosophy. Anyways, today is June 26, 2015. Hopefully people can learn more about this Copernicus character and to see if he had any trouble in argumentation with his fellow astronomers and with the church. Because basically what I'm looking at is just a 2-page synopsis. It doesn't really go too far in depth with his ideas. Alright, later.